Bonjour everyone and welcome back to the Waves of Your Soul. I'm your humble French tarot reader Marine, and today we're doing a new episode of my underrated mass market decks. I like to come back every few months to share with you the mass market tarot and oracle decks that I believe are hidden gems, that I believe are underrated, and that I feel like I just want to share with the world, give a little bit of a moment in the spotlight. There's so many decks coming out lately, there are so many amazing decks on the market that sometimes it's easy to get a little bit lost and confused as to what's good, what's not necessarily as good. And I also really enjoy talking about underrated decks. I've actually been talking about it for over 4 years now since I've started my channel, because I believe that even though I love indie decks, and God knows I have a lot of them because I'm a huge deck lover. If you watch my channel, you know that. I have a lot of tarot and oracle decks. It's a huge passion of mine. I own a lot of indie decks, but I do also believe you don't have to spend a lot of money to get great tarot or oracle decks. And so today I want to do a new episode of my underrated mass market deck series. So these are decks that maybe I don't see often being shared on social media, on tarot tube videos, in pick a card readings shared by other readers, and that I believe deserve more time in the spotlight. So if my voice is a little bit more French froggy than usual, I'm recovering from illness. I just really wanted to film a video today, hang out with you guys. It feels like spending time with my friends, and it's exactly what my soul needed. As per usual, you're going to find in the description box all the names of the decks I'm mentioning. I'm going to try to put links if I remember. You will also find all of my other social media links. I mostly hang out on Instagram. And so without further ado, let's get into my new episode of my mass market underrated decks. Let's get into it. Let me get a sip of my cinnamon infusion. My neighbor actually cut down a lot of the branches from his cinnamon tree, and I've infused the leaves to make a little bit of an infusion, and it's so nice. Tried to keep it quite short because I think it's more fun to have little mini episodes rather than just one huge long video of all my underrated decks. So for today's episode, I've got 3 tarot decks, 3 oracle decks. They're all mass market, meaning that you should be able to find them at your local bookshop, on Amazon, on Lyrica, on any kind of places where you guys buy your mass market deck. Obviously, I forgot to mention in the intro that this is my humble opinion. I consider these decks underrated because I've not seen them being used a lot on TarotTube, on other people pick a card reading, on Instagram, on social media, and all of that. And I believe that they deserve more time in the spotlight. That doesn't mean that you have to agree. Maybe for you it's your favorite deck, you use it all the time, and so it doesn't feel so much of a hidden gem. So just please take these videos with a grain of salt. It's not that deep, we're just talking about decks we love here. So let's start with a tarot deck. So my first underrated deck that I feel deserves more time in the spotlight is the Tarot del Dios de los Tres. This is a tarot deck by Fournier, who is a Spanish publisher, and so the creator of this particular deck I believe is also Spanish. And as you can see from just the box, this is a super colorful, super quirky type of tarot. So Fournier decks are slightly smaller than other decks such as like Los Scarabeo or even the ones from Grimaud, for example, or anything like that. Fournier decks are a little bit smaller, which I actually really enjoy. It means that they're super easy to carry around, and those backs might be some of my favorite backings of tarot ever. I love this particular tiger with the skull, the eyes, it's so gorgeous. And this was actually a present from a friend of mine who, if she's watching, I'm sending so much love to. Fournier decks come with English, French, Spanish, and then Dutch and Portuguese little leaflets, and you don't get a lot, you just get a few keywords, a few kind of like upwards and reverse meanings. Very simple, very straightforward. The one thing that is a bit of a shame with those type of guidebooks is that it doesn't explain to you necessarily why a certain card was depicted this way, and it's a shame for this particular deck because the depictions are very, very unique, very, very special. This is its own world, it's its own creation, and so it would have been fun to get a bit more explanation as to the choices of the artist. That being said, I think this deck is super intuitive. The colors especially make a lot of sense, and I think overall there's a lot of symbolism there to get into, that if you do like to work with animal symbolism, mythological symbolism, you're gonna have so much to get into here. There's so much symbolism in here. I think this is hugely underrated. I never see this being used, and yet for me it's so beautiful. I have thought about it, and I think the reason why it's potentially not as well loved as other very bright colorful decks, such as for example the Muse Tarot or something like that, is because first it's a pip deck, and I've noticed that we tend to use maybe less pips overall, even though there's definitely a little bit of a revival. So already that could be kind of a barrier, because pip decks can be a little bit more of a struggle to get into. Maybe there's less of an imagery, although I will say for this particular deck you don't get boring pips at all. You get animal symbolism, you get different colors, Japanese mythology influence, and there's a lot of like Egyptian mythology influence, so there's a ton of stuff to get into. But I think the fact that it's a bit pipish could be one of the reasons why maybe it's less popular. The second thing, that the reason why maybe it's a little bit less popular than another deck, is because it is very crazy wild. There's so much to get into, and it doesn't necessarily follow traditional imagery at all. This is its own world. Like I said, we've got a ton of mythological symbolism, we've got a ton of animal symbolism, and for me it means that I've got so much to get into intuitively, but I can understand why to some people it could feel a bit like a lot. The final thing that I will say is that there's definitely some imagery that are a bit wild. We have some nudity in this deck, we see some bits, we definitely see some bits, some big bits. So if you don't like that, then maybe this is not the deck for you. Personally, it doesn't really bother me to see nudity in my decks, and I adore the artwork so much. I love all the different mythological association, the colors, the art style. I love all that so much that I really don't mind a couple of cards that are showing like naked bits. This is definitely a unique, like I was saying, deck. It's its own world. You have to let your intuition speak, and this is the perfect deck if you want something that's going to be pushing you outside your comfort zone, because you're not going to be able to really rely on your stereotypical knowledge. You have to go off numerology, or you have to also go off obviously your intuition. What do you see, the colors, what it makes you feel, if there are any reference to specific stories you see here. I'm a big fan of this deck. I think, like I was saying, it's hugely underrated. I don't see it used a lot, and yet I think this is super cool. I feel like if it's giving also tattoo artist vibes, so anyone who enjoys this art style, I think you'd really enjoy it. Always brings a breath of fresh air to my readings. It's one I love to go to when I'm feeling a bit meh, a bit bored, because it just kind of infuses new fresh energy into my readings. I think hugely underrated and definitely deserves a lot more love. Let's move on to the next tarot deck. Like I said, I have 3 tarot and 3 oracle decks. My next tarot deck is an oldie but a goodie, and I've noticed that there's a big revival when it comes to decks from the 70s particularly. Like, we're getting a new version of the Aquarian, which I'm so happy about because I love the Aquarian tarot. I think we're getting also more love around the Morgan Greer. In my last video I was sharing the Hanson Roberts, which is a deck from the 70s. Like, there's something really special about decks that have been there for a long time, that have been out for a while, and this is definitely one of them that I wanted to shout out today, that I feel is again a little bit underrated, and that is the Cosmic Tarot, or in the French edition that I have, it's Tarot Cosmic. So this is by AGM. The French version, yeah, it's 98, but I'm thinking maybe the English version has been out even longer, because the particular text from the author, yeah, so we've got 1988 for the first text from the author. So 80s, not 70s, but it's still been out for a few decades. And so here are the backs, which I love. I think they're so beautiful. And so Le Tarot Cosmique, or the Cosmic Tarot, it's been out on different editions. I know that, for example, the first edition, it used to come with a huge guidebook, which is fantastic, which you can actually get as a PDF version, which I have ordered on my Kindle for super cheap. I think I paid like €2 for it, for the PDF of this deck. And honestly, if you are in the mood to read a super interesting guidebook from the 80s that talks about tarot in a very unique way, I cannot encourage you enough to get this PDF. It's so great. I got it on my Kindle. It's really giving Age of Aquarius vibe for the Cosmic Tarot. It talks about tarot in a way where it can help us not just as an individual but also as a community, how we can use tarot for bettering the world at large. It's very Aquarius, very Age of Aquarius, but super interesting, and honestly for the price it's so worth it. One of the most interesting guidebooks I've read, and the fact that it's from an older deck and everything, I really encourage you, if you're curious, to check it out. The newer versions, as you have seen, they only have the smaller guidebook, which is not huge, but I mean it gives you a little bit of a glimpse. It does explain a little bit about who is represented, why they're represented, and then you get some keywords. But honestly, like I said, if you're remotely interested in this part, in this deck, the guidebook you can get as PDF is so worth it. This is a deck that I think is definitely not underrated, in the sense that a lot of people own this deck, especially tarot lovers, tarot collectors. A lot of people own the Cosmic Tarot and have it because, like I said, it's an older deck. It's from the 80s. And usually as tarot readers, tarot lovers, we have a specific place in our heart for decks that are a little bit older, right? It's like the classics. We usually love the classics like the Aquarian, the Hanson Roberts, the Morgan Greer, and all of those. However, out of all those classic, like older decks, the Cosmic is the most underrated in my opinion, and I think it's because it's very strange, very unique, again very celestial cosmic. It very much carries its name right, and I think for that reason maybe some people again are a little bit put off by it. One thing that I absolutely love about this deck is that there's so much dancers and movement in it. You'll see a lot of the cards feature dancing, movement. It feels very fluid and beautiful, so I love that about this deck. Another thing that makes this deck super unique is that there are some famous actors and actresses in the deck. Now, I'm very bad at recognizing famous people, like I really suck at it. I'm very bad at recognizing celebrities, so I couldn't tell you who they are, but I know that they're definitely present, and I know it makes a fun little addition to this particular tarot deck. Overall, the reason why I personally love it though is, like I said, I love the movement, the fluidity, and people's expression in this deck. I've seen the Ten of Swords, it's so intense. The Star cards is beautiful. The King of Cups, I mean, to me it looks like Will Smith, but I doubt it is. I don't think it is. Overall, I think the people's body postures and their expression is so camp. It's so fun, it's so expressive that I really, really like it. I think this is absolutely a camp deck. A lot of people are just poised and dancing, and it feels very fun and just also very emotive. So in that way it reads really clearly. A lot of the people are wearing little tights. Like I said, the guidebook you can get on ebook on your Kindle and stuff is so interesting. So for that reason alone, I have really bonded with this deck, because reading the guidebook made me really understand even more why they chose to depict things this way. And there's just a lot of emotion in this deck. There's a lot of like drama. I think that's the word I was looking for. This is drama, right? Drama in all its form, and for that reason I adore it. So the Cosmic Tarot for me is definitely a underrated hidden gem. It's one of those older decks that has this kooky kind of cosmic vibes, this OG Age of Aquarius vibe, and yet it reads really well. It's a clear reader, as most of these older decks are. French version, but this exists in lots of different languages, so we love that. Let's move on to the last tarot deck of my list, and then we'll move on to oracle decks. Is the Tarot Mucha. I think you say Mucha. I've looked it up. I always want to say Mucha, but I'm pretty sure it's Mucha. It's inspired by the artist Alphonse Mucha, so this is definitely Art Nouveau vibes. There is another Art Nouveau deck that is called, I think it's the Golden Art Nouveau by Lo Scarabeo, that I see a lot. I know people love that one. It's very beautiful. I don't have it, but it's very beautiful. It's golden, it's got that Art Nouveau beautiful vibe, but I don't see this particular deck Tarahumara used that much now. And now I know that like maybe 4 years ago it was very popular, and so I used to see it quite a lot then, but nowadays it's not a deck I see talked about anymore that much. And maybe it's because, like I was saying, there's so many decks that come out all the time. I always joke that decks, it's like dog years. 1 year in the world of tarot, it feels like 5 years in real life, because there's just so many decks coming out, we can't keep up. So maybe that's why this one is not as used anymore as it used to be. But regardless, I wanted to shout it out because I know there's so many people who love this particular art style, and maybe you forgot that this one existed. Like I said, Art Nouveau as a vibe is very popular. The Golden Art Nouveau I see all the time. I know the Ethereal Vision also is very popular, and the new version with the Lunar edition. But the Tarahumara is so gorgeous, and it's not just gorgeous, but it actually has so much depth. And so this definitely follows the RWS. It's almost a clone, right? If you are familiar with traditional RWS imagery, it definitely follows that. I didn't mention that this is by Lo Scarabeo, and so it comes with these little guidebooks in lots of different languages. So you have like Spanish, English, French, I'm pretty sure, and actually you get quite a lot compared to some of the other Lo Scarabeo decks. You get a good chunk here for the meanings, and then you get some added keywords as well, so not bad. Tarahumara is definitely one of the most famous Art Nouveau artists from this particular like art movement. We're all very aware of his artwork, and I think Lo Scarabeo has done a fantastic job recreating that vibe to apply it to tarot. Like I was saying though, I think this is a little bit underrated because it's not just a pure kind of simple RWS. There's definitely some little hidden nuggets here and there that makes this just a little bit interesting. Like for example, for this 10 of swords, instead of having someone being lying on the floor and having 10 swords stick into them, we actually have someone we don't quite know if they have finished them off or if they are trying to save them. We don't know if they've planted the last sword or if they're trying to remove the sword, but I mean, he looks dead. He's gone. Yet is he helping, or is he giving the killing blow? We don't quite know, and so that gives some space in your readings to interpret things a little bit different. If I remember correctly, for example, the 6 of Cups also has some very interesting like elements, added people in there. The Judgment card is another card that kind of goes its own way a little bit. I mean, it's still very RWS vibes, but here it's this angel is kind of spooky, kind of scary. It gives me the heebie-jeebies a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. So kind of giving a gloomier vibe for the Judgment card, which again could be interpreted in lots of interesting ways in your reading. So this is absolutely an RWS, but I think it's done very beautifully. I think if you're a beginner, you're attracted to this particular art style, you have everything you need here. For the Emperor, you have the color red, you have the ram, you have the symbolism, the crown and everything, but it's just done in this beautiful art style that feels very emotive. I love this High Priestess, the 9 of Swords feel very emotional, so this is just gorgeous. The Devil is so beautiful. This was super popular, like I said, maybe 4 years ago when it came out, but it's one I don't see a lot of people talk about anymore, and so that's why I wanted to mention it today, because I do believe that in terms of Art Nouveau decks, it's definitely one of the most beautiful ones out there. It's one I've had for years personally, and I've read so much with it. It's one that is definitely a workhorse for me, reads really well, and I just wanted to give it a little bit of a moment in the light. Okay, so we've talked about tarot decks. Let's talk about now oracle decks, underrated mass market oracle decks. This is one that I again think that a lot of people will know, but that I don't see used a lot of, and I feel like it's a shame because it definitely brings a unique aspect, a unique lens to your reading, and that is the Morgan's Tarot. And it's a deck that was published in the 70s, so this is an older deck that's been out for a while, and even though it's called tarot, it's definitely an oracle deck. It's an oracle with lots of cards. I can't remember exactly how many, but there you go. Originally published in the 70s, the vibe is very new age. I was on a mushroom trip before going to Woodstock, and I created this deck in a tent going on my psychedelic trip talking to mushrooms. That's the vibe of this deck. And so just from the back you can see it says love is God. Comes with a little guidebook that looks simple, but don't sleep on this, because actually the messages are very weird, yes, very new age, yes, but bonkers in the best way possible. Like, this is giving, again, this is very much giving, I connected to God on a mushroom trip and I brought back some wisdom from the skies. Some of those messages make zero sense, and some of them make the most sense. So I can't encourage you enough, if you have this deck, to read the guidebook, because it's beyond. There's some crazy messages here, and yet at the same time it's just so interesting. A teehee haha, which gotta be one of my favorite cards, which makes me think of a little goblin or fairy that would be hiding in your socket drawer trying to steal your socks, like, teehee haha, I'm about to steal your socks. That's what it's making me think of. Okay, for example, if we say let George do it, let's have a look what it says, just so you can get an idea of the messages in the guidebook, because sometimes they make the most sense ever and you're gonna get this huge revelation, like massive life epiphany, and sometimes you're gonna be like, what the actual fuck are you trying to tell me? And for that reason, I'm obsessed. I love this deck. I think it's unmatched in energy, and God knows a lot of people tried to, but they haven't managed, in my humble opinion, to come close. Let George do it. George likes to do things. It makes him happy that he is more competent and less lazy than 99.9% of the rest of humankind. Relax and let your intuition guide you. George will do the rest. Okay, thanks George. Your mission is not yet complete. 6 ball. There are no others. Wait. Boo. This is just the vibe. That's the vibe. I've put like 5 cards and you already get the vibe. It's crazy, it's kooky, it's unique, it's weird, and it's just so brilliant. It's brilliant. There's nothing similar, and like I said, some people have tried to make things very similar, but this is unmatched. There's something so unique about this deck, something so brilliant, genius, and I mean genius in the sense of sometimes I don't understand it because it's above me, and yet every time I use it, it reminds me to not take things too seriously. I think it's a great reminder to stop looking at our buttholes and to take life with a little bit more of a pinch of salt, maybe to accept that sometimes we don't understand everything, and yet when you will have a deeper question, sometimes it will surprise you and it will literally give you some very deep, wise readings. But sometimes it's also just gonna tell you boo. You could be surprised, you could have a revelation, or you could just have something that laughs in your face. This is the risk you take with this deck, and I personally love it. It's fun, it's unique, it's quirky, again it's giving mushroom trip vibes, and I love it for that. Death, rebirth, so cool. You definitely see the 70s influence for sure in the lot of the card, and I think it's brilliant. So I wanted to shout it out today because, again, I know a lot of people know of this deck, I just don't see a lot of people using it, and I think it's because a lot of people might think it's like more of a, how do I say that, gimmicky deck sometimes, but let me tell you, this has a lot to offer. It can be very wise, it can be very profound. You just have to accept that sometimes it will also just laugh at you, and that's okay, that's life. And this is definitely a trickster deck. I mean, just from the name, the Morgan's Tarot, it's not even a tarot, it's an oracle. It's giving hugely trickster energy, and you know what, sometimes tricksters will teach you something so profound, and sometimes they will make you run after your own tail. That's the risk you get with tricksters, but they still are very important. So that's my underrated trickster deck for sure, the Morgan's Tarot. Okay, we are moving on to the next oracle deck that I think is very underrated, that I feel like should get more love, or that I feel deserve more time in the spotlight. It is the Witching Hour Oracle by Cherry Gerhardt. So sorry if I'm butchering that. And this was originally an indie deck, and it was picked up mass market last year, I think. And honestly, this is so beautiful, and I don't see it used enough. Again, I don't see it used enough in reading specifically, when I feel like so many people would love this one because it's just super, super gorgeous. So let's have a look at it. So the way that this is set up is based on the moon. So for example, for the wolf moon, also known as chaste moon, distinct moon, and quiet moon, you always have 3 different cards per moon. So for the wolf moon, we have beginning, protection, and align. Then we go to the ice moon, and we have purification, growth, and self-healing. So for each of the different moons from the lunar calendar, you will have 3 different cards. So that's the system of the deck. Here are the backs, by the way. Gorgeous. Look at this raven and this owl. It's not reversible, but I mean, I don't read my oracles reversed anyway. I don't even read really my tarot decks reversed either, so that doesn't bother me at all. We have the moon phases here, so beautiful. So this system follows the different moons, and you can see the names of the moons on each of the card, and then you get a keyword. I think that's pretty neat. A lot of the lunar inspired oracle decks I see out there are usually around the full moon and the new moon, but not necessarily about the different moons, and so I thought that was pretty cool. Really, for me, makes this outstanding oracle though is the artwork and how diverse the people represented are. We see beautiful younger beings, elder beings, we see different skin tones, different body types, and I love that. I love to see that in my oracle decks, and this is absolutely giving beautiful witchy vibes. The keywords are very expensive. We have just single keywords like growth, protection, dream work, which means that you can use this with the guidebook or without. This is a great clarifier if you want to put it at the end of your readings. There's a good balance of keywords here. It's very beginner friendly, I think. I mean, in terms of the keywords, they're very accessible, and also the guidebook, the way it's written, is also very accessible, very easy to understand. So this is honestly fantastic. It's super beautiful. For me, this is super underrated, and I'm surprised not more people use it, because I always hear the complaint that oftentimes oracle decks depict a lot of younger people, and yet this one actually, so like I was saying, for each of the type of moon you have 3 different keywords, 3 different cards, and you actually always have maiden, mother, and crone depicted. So there's a lot of crone energy in this deck, which is something we don't see enough of in oracle decks, in tarot decks. I really believe that crone energy, elder energy, is not something we see enough of. I personally love to see that in my decks, and so this one definitely scratched that itch, if I can say it like that. Like, it makes me happy to see crone energy depicted, to see elder beings, and honestly, this is just gorgeous. So for me, hugely underrated. I think so many readers would enjoy this one. It's easy to use, it's versatile, there's so many ways you can read with it, you can clarify it with the guidebook, without the guidebook. This is one of my favorite cards, the friendship card. Look at how mischievous and cute they are. Oh my god, I want to be their friends. Every time I pull it, I'm like, oh, so cute. I think there's another deck with a very similar name. Maybe it's like the Witch Hour instead of the Witching Hour. I don't remember, but I remember I've seen another oracle deck with a very, very similar name, and maybe that's why this one is not as popular. Maybe again it's because there's so many oracle decks that come out all the time, so we just get drowned and some of them kind of go under the radar. But don't sleep on this one. It's fantastic. It's really beautiful. It is 39 cards though, so that's also maybe why some people are not picking it up, because I know a lot of people prefer larger decks. I do myself. I also normally don't really like anything below 44 at least, but honestly I forgive this one because of how beautiful it is. Okay, last mass market oracle deck that I believe is very underrated is the Prism Oracle by Nicole Pivirotto. Again, this is a deck I've had for years, probably since 2020, and I don't see it used enough of, in my opinion, and yet if you enjoy working with color, if you enjoy working with chakra, if you enjoy doing candle magic, if you just enjoy anything like that, then this is super versatile and definitely can be a great tool. In my memory, it was very affordable when I bought it back in 2020. Yeah, it was $17.99. I mean, on the box. God knows what it's like now. We know with inflation and everything, it could be not the same price, but at the time anyway, it was definitely an affordable oracle deck. The guidebook is great, it's full color, and it will give you short message about each of the card. As you can see, it's color coded because this is definitely based on color, and you have some great spreads in here. You have new moon spread. There's, in my memory, there's at least like 6 or 7 different spreads here, which are so good. It gives you some information on how you can work with the cards and stuff. So honestly, a very practical, helpful little oracle guidebook that I think does a great job at introducing to you how to work with the oracle deck. If you've never worked with one before, it's a great beginner friendly one, I think, this one. Here are the backs of the card, and it's very glossy, so you can see my camera here, hello. So that's one thing that maybe is not my favorite thing. It's very glossy, and the sides are hollow, but it's like copper with a bit of hollow. I don't know if you can see that. My deck is, like I said, at least 4 years old, so it's definitely seen some use, and it's not in the nicest shape ever. But you know what? I think for how much I've been using it over the years, it's definitely holding on well. So this is based on color, like I was saying. For each of the cards, you have very minimalist, simplistic art style, one keyword, and then the color. I think that there's so much you can do with it. So obviously, you can take this as face value, look at what's on the card, look at the keyword, read the guidebook. But ways I like to use this is for chakra reading, for example. Because with all the colors, you can definitely do that. So I've enjoyed doing chakra reading with this one. I also love using this for working with color. So thinking about what color do I need to incorporate in my life, and what color do I need to wear today to like meditate with, things like that. Also, I've loved using this for things like, let's say you're thinking about doing a little bit of candle magic. It can help you think which color you need to work with, which color you need to wear that day, which color you could put on the background of your phone if you want to either attract a certain energy, or on the reverse if you want to repulse a certain energy. Like, there's a lot of ways you could work with this deck, not just through the meaning, but also through the colors. And of course, the keywords are great. I mean, they're simple, straight to the point, and you do have a very good balance between lighter and more shadow keywords. Definitely not a all lovey-dovey. We have a good balance of keywords. And the art style, whilst it's very simplistic, which is not my favorite style, I've kind of grown to love it. This is my favorite card because it's just cute. I like the little eyelids, and I like the happiness card as well. But yeah, it's not my favorite art style. I like normally very illustrated things, but the fact that we can work with color, I love that one too, that I found so many different ways to work with this deck, it's just become one of those workhorses for me that just works. Like, I don't have to overthink it. It's simple, it's straight to the point. It's really not that complicated, and sometimes I just need that very easy energy with my decks. So this is one that I think a lot of you out there would enjoy if you want something simple, straight to the point, no fuss, no bullshit, no esoteric fluff, whatever. You just want to know what's the tea. This is great. Like I said, the guidebook, straight to the point. If we look at the disruption card, for example, and again, it's categorized by color, which we love. So for example, all the pink cards are together. So here's our disruption. Like this shocking pink color, this card demands attention. It represents intensity, innovation, and nonconformity. It's a catalyst for releasing fear in order to make bold and courageous move. What is stagnant in your life that needs to change? How can you shake things up a bit? How can you continuously innovate your life in unexpected and productive ways? Love that. Simple, straight to the point, useful, practical advice. This is a very practical, day-to-day, beginner-friendly kind of deck. It's also a deck I recommend a lot for people who want to get into oracle decks but are afraid of anything too esoteric, too obscure, too new age and stuff. This is really the opposite of the Morgan's Tarot, for example. The Morgan's Tarot is super woo-woo, which I love as well, but this is definitely a lot more anchored into day-to-day life, a lot more practical. In that way, I think if you are a bit nervous about getting into card reading, you want something simple, easy to understand, straight to the point, that's not going to be talking about archangels and stuff like that, but that's going to be applicable to your day-to-day life. This is one I recommend often, that people really enjoy usually. So my friends, this is it. These were all of my underrated decks for today. I hope you enjoyed seeing them. Again, maybe for some of you they're not that underrated, and maybe for some of you you'd never seen them before. I hope it was fun anyway to spend that time together. Now I want to ask, what are your most underrated deck in your opinion? Mass market oracle decks, mass market tarot decks that you believe are hidden gem, that you think not a lot of people are using, that you feel deserve more time in the spotlight, that you think should be more loved by everyone, that you wish you could just give to everybody because it's so great. Tell me your like most underrated mass market deck in your opinion. If you've made it to this point of the video, you can leave me a little turtle emoji, because we had my absolutely super cute little lepidolite turtle that I got for my birthday. So yeah, leave me a little turtle emoji if you've made it this far. It will let me know you've reached this point, and it will make me super happy. And until my next video, I just want to thank you for being here. I want to send you so much good vibes and keep navigating the waves of your soul. Bye!